Allison, how's it going?
Good. From the future. I'm doing great. How are you?
That's what happens when we talk to people in Australia. They're always in the future. So we're going to go through real quick here on a topic that I know nothing about, which is the energy efficiency existing ship index. Uh, let's talk about how we got here first. So we're both kind of cargo nerds, and you sent me a WhatsApp of this awesome picture of you in a destroyer, to which I told you that I thought you looked like Cher, to which you took it right down the rabbit hole. So I had to pretend on our WhatsApp that I knew what the heck you were talking about, which I absolutely did not, which means there's probably other people who have no idea what this is. So maybe we can run through it real quick, keep it high level, and educate everyone on an important sustainability topic. Sound good?
Sounds amazing. Let's give
All
everyone the
right.
10 ready reckoner before they meet the CEO and
Yep.
give them the all important updates.
All right. So I'm going to hit you with these four questions, and we got a little slide for each one, and then we'll get everybody out of here and on with their day. So let's go first. What are we talking about here?
A lot of acronyms. Break it down. We've got the United Nations, and underneath that sits the International Maritime Organization, the IMO. A lot of people get it confused with the IMF, International Monetary Fund. No. So IMO is the marine arm of the UN, and they set a bunch of international conventions and regulations, and countries sign up to them. Part of that, underneath that, is MARPOL, which is marine pollution. So it looks after a lot of the environmental impacts that happen around the world, and they update them regularly or semi-regularly to basically capture the next bunch of issues that have come across in the industry or globally. Part of that obviously is CO2 emissions. In 2019, rolling into 2020, we had sulfur emissions, and we tried to take care of that with how we scrub the sulfur out of the exhaust. And now we're talking about carbon emissions. So the Marine Environmental Protection Committee, which is the MPEC of the IMO, introduced this EEXI into MARPOL. So what it is essentially is they're going to, over the entire course of 2023, every ship's going to have to go in for an annual survey, and they're going to measure the actual output of CO2 from that specific ship. And you go, okay, we've got this number for this ship. We've got ship A, it produces this much amount of CO2. So what? What they've done is they've worked up and said, right, we're going to categorize it A through to E. And we're going to say you're either A, B, C, D, E. A to C is like, yep, you know what, that's good, we like it. D, problematic. E, super problematic. So what happens then? Basically, you're going to be given a certificate, or your P&I club, which is protection and indemnity. It's a whole nother topic, but basically all the insurance that underpins the carriers for the big problems, and the big, when they ground, general average, lose containers. What they're going to do is they're going to say, right, we've measured your CO2 from your annual survey, and we've categorized you. If you're A to C, yeah, we like you. Here's a ticket. Here is the International Energy Efficiency Certificate that says you were good to travel. And you might go, okay, is it like a passport? Sort of. Ports around the world are getting increasingly concerned about having these huge super polluter ships come into their port, sit in their port, and start pumping out all this extra CO2 because it impacts on port communities. Let's talk about microparticulates, things like that. Ports will actually soon have the ability to reject ships if they fall under the allowable limits and if they don't have the certificate to trade. So IMO said, right, CO2, problematic. Take your ship in, get it tested, rate it, get a good rating. Here's a certificate, continue on as you were. If you're in the danger zone, you're going to start having problems. And what is it? So that's the kind of very
Awesome.
high level. And think of it like, so in Australia, we have these energy efficiency ratings, and we have 5 stars. and you get a little sticker on your fridge or your washing machine, and it shows you how many stars rating it is. And I think other countries have those
We have the same in the
variations.
US. The Energy Star program, I think we call it. So,
Yeah.
so cool. So why do I care about this?
You care ultimately because one, your ship that your goods are on, which you don't really have a lot of control over. I mean, you have target vessels, but that's due to timing, not necessarily because you're like, oh, I like it. That one's pretty. I like the name of that ship. That ship may not be allowed to enter in the port you want. And
See,
then
I'm going to
your
call you
goods.
out right here because I actually put a LinkedIn post on yesterday about the fact that I like the name of a ship because they just named the ship after the city of Camden, which is across the river
I
from me.
did.
So I am that much of a nerd. Now let's keep going.
Okay. But are you telling your freight forwarder I only want it on that ship?
Yes.
Yes.
That one bulk carrier is
Yeah,
going to
that
do
one
all of
that
my
one
freight
boat
for now.
carrier. I like the cut of her jib. So usually you're more schedule based and price based, but everyone's got their own little. See, this is why customer service matters, Brian. So why did why did this matter? Because shipping gets a really bad rap about its CO2 pollution, right? They're like, oh, shipping, it's the worst. We're going to go back to wind power. We're going to put our little fancy sails up on the ships, and we're going to kind of dependent on wind. That's kind of why we moved away from that. A little bit unpredictable. So stats on, let's just talk about CO2 really, really quickly. But from 2008 to 2023, so on a 15-year time span, global shipping has gone up 40% in volume. It's gone up 97% in tonnage. We've nearly doubled the world's fleet. Carbon emission has reduced by 14%. Doubled the world's tonnage, reduced the amount of carbon emissions by
I did not
14%.
know that's all. That's good news.
Right? No, we're doing really good things. And so that's why I really wanted to make that point that we have managed to double, not exactly the number of ships, and yet bring our carbon emissions down. We are doing really good things. This is just another part of that piece. But if you did view international shipping as a country, it would be the sixth largest contributor.
So we're doing good
But
stuff and we have a ways to go.
we're doing good stuff and we have a ways to go. So IMO's got targets so the EU's got target, the UK's got targets. In July 2023, so just a couple of months ago, the IMO said, you know what? We want a 20% of greenhouse gas. They're very tied to the GHG terminology. It's stuck now. So by 2030, they want a 20% reduction, striving for 30%. And then in 2040, 70% reduction, striving for 80%. 2050, net zero. And the next 5 years are actually the key window because ships have about a 25-year lifespan, right? Before we go, they're going to be problematic. They're going to be too much to repair, all those good things. So by 2050, right, you want net zero, come back. So that's 2025. It takes you about 2 years to build a ship. The entire industry has sort of it's a crunch time to go.
Yesterday.
What fuel? Yeah. What alternative fuel are we going with, everyone? We all got to pick. And everyone's like, because you need maximum, right? You need kind of everyone to pull together on this. So
all right.
How does this impact me?
Yes.
So if you're a carrier, you're going to want to make sure you've booked in that survey. You want to follow it up, not go, oh, we'll get to that later. So you're going to want to have a, green IMO compliance person who's tracking this, looking at the rating, filling out the paperwork and ticking off all those really boring things and going, yep, we've got it. We've got the paperwork and we've produced it to our P&I club so that they know that we've done it. And any problem vessels you're going to look after because depending on where you fall on the D&E scale, you either have a 1-year plan that you've got to put in place to get the rating up a bit more with a 3-year kind of probation. Otherwise, you're in trouble and you might go, so what, Alison? So what if I don't have this card to trade? Who cares? underpinning insurance is the fact that all the things that you do are legal. So that's just not about carrying sanctioned goods or going to sanctioned countries or dealing with terrorists. It's about saying, have I complied with all the laws? And if you've not complied with MARPOL, you've not complied with the IMO regulations, you might be waiving all of your insurance for that vessel, which is talking hundreds of millions of dollars of
So that
liability, if
sounds
not
important.
billions. It's
Um,
very important. It is compliance that is going to hurt, and we don't want another hand in. So that's for
right.
the carriers, right?
Yeah.
If you're a freight forwarder and you're really into green is who you are and green is what you do, start having conversations. I would be asking for rankings. I would be that person and say, I want your fleet, I want your rankings, so I can go out and tender and say to my clients, these are the carriers, these are the vessels, this is how you can talk about your efforts for green. And the market demands are always going to change social behaviors so much faster than regulation can, right? If you have, the Apples of the world who are saying, oh, shipping by sea, who'd have thought it? Love this. And part of moving from air to sea is about being greener. And they wanted to take that to its fullest conclusion and say, we're only going on A-rated ships. Well, if you wanted to get Apple's tender for the first time ever, you're going to be scrambling to get as many A ships as you can. So you can say, look, 60% of our fleet is A, 70% of our fleet is A rated. And you can take that to your shareholders. So
So,
if I was a
I'll
freight
jump
forwarder,
in here for a sec on the shipper side, because I think
yeah,
I spend a little more time with them. But all the shippers, if you're operating in Europe, you're operating in a scale in California, you're going to have to start doing your scope 3 carbon emissions reporting. And one
yeah,
of the things you're going to want to know, whether you're doing it directly or whether you're doing it through a CO2 calculation engine, is that if you are moving stuff on highly compliant, highly rated vessels, that information is flowing downstream to you so
yeah,
that you don't unfairly use averages that include vessels that are much worse than what you're doing because you may be paying a premium to move product on greener lanes, and
yeah,
that data needs to come back to you inside of your organization so that someone in the ESG group isn't using a standard calculation based on an industry average instead of a vessel specific calculation for the compliant vessels that you are operating on. So there's a big thing about, maybe not being able to act heavily because yes, people do move based more on schedule than on how pretty the vessels are. But knowing that information, you should be getting credit when you do your internal reporting for doing the right thing. And the only way to do that is to understand what questions you need to ask of your NVOs, your freight forwarders, and your carriers to get at, getting points for doing the right thing, which
and
matters.
that's the other thing is that oh well, yeah, what do I do next? This is perfect, right? We've kind of broad brushed over it. Carriers appoint someone to be the owner. I don't care if it's an owner per ship, if you've got a trade lane. Also, if you're in consortias, you need to be talking to your partners and putting that into your consortia agreement, liner contracts, that all vessels have to maintain a certain rating. Because if you're vessel sharing and you got 4 vessels on a loop, and one of them doesn't make it into port, well, kind of problematic because you were relying on that for schedule integrity. If I was a freight forwarder and a shipper, honestly, because sometimes depending if the freight forwarder is buying the blocks and they're cutting house bills, or if they're saying, well, we'll manage it, but we'll put you on the bill, I would be looking at all your tender contracts and excluding basically a green GRI surcharge, because the EU is, and I think we were talking about this just before, if I can find it, maritime shipping will be brought into the EU's carbon cap and trade system. And they're going to issue carbon credits. And if you don't have enough credits, you've got to buy more. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to go, oh, well, I need this carbon credit for this ship. You're taking this many slots on my ship. I'll just, you can pay a bit and a bit and a bit and a bit, and make sure your rates don't force you to have to pay and have that cost pass through. I mean, if you want to pay a green surcharge and you want to be on a green lane, you want to pay that premium, that is different, right? Guaranteeing on a green lane is completely different to wearing the cost of compliance for the carrier because they've just passed on that charge to you.
And there's a lot of, I'm sure this will be a big topic over the next few months, but as we get into 2024 contracts, the carriers on the container side of the business, at least, are, indicating that this ETS program and this European taxation is going to be sort of a blanket thing. And one of the things that we're talking to a lot of our customers about is make sure you have the data going into your contract negotiations. So regardless of what the outcome of this and how the market bears this out, which
Mm.
may be different in a high capacity kind of overcapacity market that we're looking like for 2024, in a low capacity market in the future. All of these things shift around. It's always negotiation, but
Yeah.
if I've learned anything, it's if you walk into a negotiation and the other person has more information and a better understanding than you're likely to lose. So being educated on this is important kind of regardless of what the market will bear. And we didn't even mention, and this is my fault because I've always lived in the container shipping world, but if you're doing chartering and you're doing bulk, you still you kind of start falling into all of these categories, and you really better know if you're a commodities trader or you're in that bulk market and you're looking at full vessels. This is going to be darn important to make sure that you understand where that vessel fits in this scheme as well. So
And this is the thing, right? We know shipping has a large pocket of, she'll be right, give it a go. What's the worst that can happen?
well, so I think our
You,
job is to educate the industry so that people start taking this stuff seriously. So
yeah.
again, we got our addresses there. If you want to get in touch, we'll also make sure wherever we post this that there are some links for everyone. And whirlwind tour here on a very complicated and big topic. But again, hope we brought some value to everyone. So thanks, Allison, for doing this.
Always happy to have a chat.